Shalom, everyone, and welcome to our Shabbat service. It is December 13th, 2024, and we are excited about everything that is happening in our lives, and especially all of the information that we have gathered in this particular lesson for tonight. It is more than you can actually give on one lesson, but we're going to try to get through it as fast as we can. And my wife had mentioned to me that in rushing through, trying to get through in the manner in which I was doing, that it was making it a little rushy at the end. And so we're not going to be as rushy at the end. We're still going to be, this lesson is 18 slides. And so it is complicated and a lesson full of knowledge. And so I want to welcome each and every one to our lesson on tonight, admonishing you to get your notes for lesson 7 out. Hope you all enjoyed your week away. I certainly enjoyed the wedding that I attended. And it was a good thing that we did postpone that lesson because we definitely would not have been able to get back by 7 o'clock to do what we would normally do at that particular lesson. So, so far, one of you have come. My sister Mandaleo has joined us, and I want to say welcome to you. And since you joined in a timely manner, which you always do, then I'm going to say welcome to you and the rest of them that come late. Well, they'll just have to join us as we go. Because like I said, we have 18 slides. If you look at your outline, we're still going to do 7 sessions trying to get through this, but I'm not going to read this. I'm not going to show the session. I may read parts of it before we go into the next session, but I'm not going to show it on the screen because every time I do that, I encounter some problems. Could be because my computer is a little old. That is that is a truism, which is what my granddaughter always tells me, Papa, you need a new computer. But I'm old and set and wait till things wear out completely. And in the technology age, that means they shut down. So we're going to proceed. Again, shalom, welcome. We're going to pray and get into our set screen, but I wanted to just give some notes, see what happens in a Torah study group is you go through it, which is the first 5 books of the Bible. And once you have completed it, then you do it again. Because under the study of what is called Torah, which means instructions, because the creator of the universe gave those instructions to Moses to give not only to the children of Israel, but specifically to them. And they in turn were to give it to the rest of mankind. And so there are 4 different levels of study. One in Hebrew is called Peshat, and Peshat is basically kind of a literal, just getting in and touching on the basics. The next level is called Ramez, which goes into a deeper understanding of the word. And the third level is called Drash, D-R-A-S-H, and that goes into a much more spiritual and numerical level of study. And then there is Sod, which really gets into other studies that are called some Kabbalistical studies and other things as you go through and you learn. So each year you go through the Torah, then you learn more and more about what this foundation of all the scriptures is giving us. And there's never enough. And for Jewish people that study Torah, this is a lifelong work. So in 1 week, they will go through all 4 levels of study of that particular lesson. So we're going into Vayetze, and they were going through all 4 different levels of understanding with illustrations and everything, because we learned from Yeshua that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of the Creator. And so since we understand Yeshua is the word that became flesh, then you can't study too much, because it is the spirit man that we're really trying to feed and nourish, that is going to allow communication with the Holy Spirit to guide us on our journey to fulfill everything that the Creator has designed for us to do. And so that's why it is so important to understand these first 5 books, to go over them and over them and over them again, because that's the foundation of all the scriptures. All what we have in what we call the Protestant Bible is 66 books. The Torah is the foundation of all of that. And so you need to understand that to get the revelation that Yeshua gave when he came. When he came, the word became flesh and dwelt among us. And he said in the book of Matthew that he came to fulfill or bring to a higher level of understanding what? The Torah and or what we call the Old Testament. So in order to understand the New Testament, you have to understand the Old Testament, foundationally the Torah. And from Yeshua, quoted from Torah more than anything else that is recorded in the Gospels. And so it's important to really go through this. So let's get started. I talked a little bit more than I wanted to there, but that's why we do this. And that's why it's so important to understand that you can't understand all Yeshua came to do. Oh, somebody got mute yourself. You can't understand everything Yeshua came to do unless you understand the Old Testament, specifically the Torah, the first 5 books. And so with that, let's pray, and then we'll get into our study as we go into our split screen. Jehovah, our Elohim, we thank you for this day. This is the day that you have made. We rejoice. We are glad in it. We thank you for the Ruach HaKodesh, your Holy Spirit, that comes to guide us into all truth. Thank you for opening up our hearts and our minds to receive all that you will reveal to us through your word on tonight. And it's in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach we pray. Amen. Okay, with that.
Hodari, can you spell the name, the 4 levels of the study, the 4 levels of study?
Peshat, P-E-S-H-A-T, Remez, R-E-M-E-Z, Remez, Drash, D-R-A-S-H, and Sod, S-O-D.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So with that, let's get into our shared screen. And we're going to get into our slide presentation. And you should have on your screen now the first slide, which basically outlines our lesson. It is called Vayetze, Vayetze, which means he went out. And it's from Genesis 28 and 10 to chapter 32 and 3. And so this is lesson 7 of 52 lessons that will get us through the first 5 books in 52 weeks, okay? Because we already missed one. At some point, we're going to try to make up a lesson. But right now, since it's new, we're going to just try to take our time. All right, with that, let's get into our first introductory slide. Now, if you look on your outline, you'll see a general overview, and I'm going to read that before we get into 28 and 10. The general overview is we're going to find out, and you'll see it spelled just a little bit differently on your outline, Vayetze, because in Hebrew, there are no vowels, and so it's just the consonants, and so there's markings that indicate vowels. So in the pronunciation changes from different understandings of the vowel present there. And so it might be spelled a little bit different from different persons, but it's because of their interpretation of the vowel sounds and how that sound comes out. We're going to find that Jacob travels. Jacob, or Yaakov is what we're going to say, because of the text, the translation that I use, going to say Yaakov, but in our notes it says Jacob is going to travel to his uncle Laban because of what transpired between he lying to his father, taking the blessing that of the oldest, which his father was going to give to Esau, contrary to what had been revealed by Jehovah to Rebecca, his wife. And so he's going now to travel because Esau planned to kill him for stealing the blessing. So now he's going to travel to Laban to get a wife, which is the excuse he used to leave rather than say, my brother was going to kill me. So Jacob stays for 20 years. Keep that in mind. You highlight that on your outline. He stayed in Haran for 20 years. And in that 20-year span, he had at least 11 children. And so normally it would be like a 3-year period between children from one particular wife. But in this instance, he had 4 wives. So he went there and got 4 wives within a couple of, actually, he got 4 wives within 7 years and a week. So remember, he was only in Haran for 20 years. Also, make a note that he went at the age of 70. So he wasn't no little kid when he went to go and find a wife. He was 70 years old. And so with that, he's going to marry Leah and Rahel or Rachel, but he only wanted to marry Rachel. But because of what transpired between he and his uncle Laban, this is what happened. So remember, Laban is Rebecca's brother. All right, so now let's get into our lesson for today. And after we get through this first section, then I will ask for questions. So try to hold them, write them down, make a note, and then we'll try to get to it right after we finish the first section, which is going to find that Yaakov is leaving now, and he's going to travel towards the land of Haran, which is where not the point of origin of Abraham, but where they stayed. And once they left Ur of the Chaldeans, they settled in the land that they named after one of the brother, Abram's brother. And so let's get now to chapter 28, verse 10. So Yaakov, remember that's Jacob. Yaakov is Hebrew. Yaakov went out from Beersheba and traveled towards Haran. Notice the difference in spelling in the Hebrew understanding and what is translated in an English saying of that word. He came to a certain place and stayed the night there because the sun had set. He took a stone from the place, put it under his head, and lay down there to sleep. He dreamt that there before him was a ladder resting on the ground and its top reaching to heaven. And the angels of Jehovah were going up and down on it. We highlighted that because that's a very important thing for us to see. And the place and everything else that is revealed about this place lets us know that this is the place where he's lying, is where the temple will eventually be built by Solomon in the land of Israel, specifically in Jerusalem. And so this place signifies to us that this is the place that was designed by Jehovah, the Creator, for man to understand a relationship between what? Jehovah, the Creator, and man's relationship to one another. So this ladder going up, and angels are doing what? Going up and down. So they're going up. So that's why we sing a lot of times in our song, when the praises go up, the blessings come down. So the angels are going up, and they said that Jehovah was at the top. So then suddenly Jehovah was standing there next to him, and he said, I am Jehovah, the Elohim of Abraham, your grandfather, and the Elohim of Yitzhak, which is Isaac. The land on which you are lying, I will give to you and to your descendants. So remember that Yaakov or Jacob was running for his life and was very despondent at this time concerning why he had to leave. Also concerned about, wait a minute, what did I do? Right? Because he had lied to his father and taken the blessing that his brother had actually given him earlier, but that his father intended to give to him. So as we go down, he says, Jehovah says, your descendants will be as numerous as the grains of dust on the earth. You will expand to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. By you and your descendants, all the families of the earth will be blessed. He says, look, I am with you. I will guard you wherever you go, and I will bring you back into this land, because I won't leave you until I have done what I have promised you. So that's a great promise, but it also goes to the state of mind in where the Creator, Jehovah, says, remember, they interchange sometimes angels of Jehovah and Jehovah himself, because it's understood that when an angel comes, he's only coming as a messenger from Jehovah. And he's only going to say what he has been told to say by Jehovah, the Creator. And so they'll interchange that a lot in the writing of Scripture. But in this instance, that Yud He Vav He is written there. And so he's given the promise that he's going to protect him on this journey, which he needed because he left with nothing. Basically, just walking, probably had some food and water, but that's it. When the servant of Abraham went to find a wife for Isaac, he had like 10 camels full of stuff. But Yaakov is traveling on his own. The next part of the first section, verse 16, Yaakov awoke from his sleep and said, truly, Jehovah is in this place, and I didn't know it. Then he became afraid and said, this place is fearsome. This has to be the house of Elohim. This is the gate heaven. So once again, this is the place where the temple is going to be. This is also the place where Abraham had gone to sacrifice Isaac. Same location. And so the importance of this place would have been revealed to Isaac, and then, of course, to Yaakov, who also was what? He was able to talk and study and learn from his grandfather, Abraham. Abraham lived for 15 years of Yaakov's life. So now the despondence and everything he was feeling is kind of going away because he's now realizing, based on what he had been taught, where this place actually is. And so now Yaakov got up early in the morning, took the stone he put under his head, set it up as a standing stone, poured olive oil on its top, and named the place Beit El, or what we say in English, Bethel, or the house of Elohim. But the town had originally been called Luz. So this is just letting us know how the importance of this location is, because this is where the temple will one day reside. Yaakov took this vow. He says, if Elohim will be with me and will guard me on this road that I am traveling, giving me bread to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return to my father's house in peace, then Jehovah will be my Elohim. And this stone, which I have set up as a standing stone, because he said, I will bring you back to this place, this very place, and it will be Elohim's house. And of everything you give me, I will faithfully return 1/10 to you. Once again, this is what he learned from his grandfather Abraham, who gave 1/10 of the spoils to Melchizedek. So now he's rehearsing this thing and remembering what's going on and saying to Elohim, if you bring me back to this space, if you said, I will give 1/10, just like my grandfather did. I will give 1/10 in your honor of everything I have gained. And so with that, we close out the first section of our lesson. So let's stop here and see if we have any questions. All right. Where's my chat line? It hasn't popped down yet. Oh, it's at the bottom. None. Okay. Then we're going to go and jump right back to our shared screen. All right. So now we're going to be in the beginning of our second session, which goes from Genesis 29, verse 1 to Genesis 29, verse 17, and it'll be 2 slides. I can usually get about 10 verses per slide. So in our second session, we're going to see that he's going to go get to the land, inquire about his uncle, and meet the woman who he will love from initially seeing, which is Rachel. All right, so let's go on. Continuing his journey, Yaakov went to the land. Yaakov came to the land of the people of the east. This is the land of course, Haran. As he looked, he saw a well in a field, and there were 3 flocks of sheep lying there next to it, because they watered the sheep from the well. Same thing, remember, as Eliezer, or the servant of Abraham, did when he went to the well and found Rebekah. The stone on the well's mouth was very large, and only when all the flocks had gathered there would they roll the stone away from the opening of the well and water the sheep. They would have these troughs out there, and they would then pour in there, and the sheep could then come and drink. Then they would put the stone back in its place on the well's opening. Verse 4. Yaakov said to them, "My brother, where are you from?" They answered, "We're from Haran." He asked them, "Do you know Laban, the grandson of Nahor?" They said, "We do." He asked them, "Are things going well with him?" "Yes," they answered. "And here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." Remember the testimony of the servant of Abraham. The same kind of situation happened. He saw Rebekah and then told the Lord, "If you let Rebekah, if that's the one, you give me a sign that she'll answer my question and she'll say these things." Well, the same kind of scenario is now playing out as Rachel comes with the sheep. He said, "Look, there's still plenty of daylight left, and it isn't time to bring the animals home. So water the sheep, then go and put them out to pasture." They answered, "We can't, not until the flocks have been gathered together." They rolled the stone away from the opening of the well. That's when we water the sheep. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, and she took care of them. So normally it's going to take several men to move this stone away so that they can drop the pitcher down, bring it up, start pouring water into the trough for the sheep to then drink. But they were waiting, but we're going to see in this section that Isaac didn't wait. He's not going to wait. He said, "Let's do this." And so in verse 10, when Yaakov saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Yaakov went up and rolled the stone away from the opening of the well. He did it by himself, and he watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. And so he moved it himself, and he watered the flock, whereas with Rebekah, she gave water to all the camels and to the servant of Abraham as well. Yaakov kissed Rachel and wept aloud, probably both cheeks, maybe just the hand. Yaakov told Rachel that he was her father's relative and that he was Rivka's son. So Yaakov is now telling her who he is. And she ran and told her father. Remember, that's Rebekah's brother. When Laban heard the news of Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him. I don't know if she told him he came with nothing but a pack on his back, because the last time Laban met a relative from Abraham's house, he had 10 camels loaded with goods and put a ring on a gold ring on her nose and gold bracelets on her wrist. So Laban is greedy and he's running out to check this out. Laban said to him, "You are indeed my own flesh and blood." So he was trying to figure out, what is this, man? Where are the camels? After Yaakov had stayed with them for a whole month. So now a month is going to go by. He's going to take him in, feed him. He's family. He's kin. So he's going to take him in. So, but Yaakov is going to go to work. And then after Yaakov had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Why should you work for me for nothing? Just because you are my relative. Tell me how much I should pay you." Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel or Rahel. Leah's eyes were weak, they were not, in most cases, brown. They could be blue, maybe not blue, but could be gray or some other color, but they would not be brown. But Rachel was good looking with beautiful features. Verse 18, Yaakov had fallen in love with Rachel and said, now this is after a month. He says, I will work for you 7 years in exchange for Rachel, your younger daughter. Laban answered, better that I give her to you than to someone else. Stay with me then. So he's going to work 7 years for Rachel. So Yaakov worked 7 years for Rachel, and it seemed only a few days to him because he was so much in love with her. Yaakov said to Laban, give me my wife since my time is finished. So this would be what? After 7 years, so that I can start living with her. Laban gathered all the men of the place and gave a banquet. In the evening, he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to Yaakov, and he went in and slept with her. So now he asked for Rachel. However, he gave a big feast, probably got him kind of drunk. And then when he went in to be with his wife, because she would be veiled, when he went in to be with her, he slipped Leah in there instead of Rachel. Laban also gave his slave girl, Zilpah, to his daughter Leah as her slave girl. So we're going to see how this plays out in this time frame of these 20 years. So this actually becomes his second wife. In the morning, Yaakov saw that he was with Leah, and he said to Laban, what kind of thing is this that you have done to me? Didn't I work for you for Rachel? Why have you deceived me? Same exact thing he had done to his father, deceived. Laban also gave his slave girl, verse 26. Laban answered, in our place, this isn't how it's done, to give the younger daughter before the firstborn. So now he's playing back the very same scenario that was the culture that Isaac was going to what? Make sure happened to Esau. But Jehovah had told Rebekah, no, the younger was going to be the one to receive the blessing. Laban is playing back. No, we don't do that here. This is what Isaac was going to do for Esau. Finish the marriage week of this one. Now you got to go ahead and stay with her at least a week. And we'll give you the other one also in exchange for the work you will do for me during yet another 7 years. So there's going to be another 7 years. This first 7 years and 1 week, he got Leah. But after that week, then he marries Rachel. Yaakov agreed to this. So he finished her week, and Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. Laban also gave to his daughter Rachel another slave girl, or Bilhah, as her slave. So she's going to be the matron of Rachel. So not only did Yaakov go in and sleep with Rachel, but he also loved Rachel more than Leah. Then he served Laban another 7 years. And we continue. Slide 7. Jehovah saw that Leah was unloved, so he made her fertile. This basically means that the understanding was because Yaakov did not want to be with her, she became fertile, which means she was going to have children to deal with the fact that she was to win back the favor of Yaakov, while Rachel remained childless. Leah conceived and gave birth to a son, whom she named Reuben, which means see a son. For she said, it is because Jehovah. So the name Yud He Vav He, those four letters were in this place in the scripture. So it is because Jehovah has seen how humiliated I have been. But now my husband will love me. And she conceived again and gave birth to a son and said, it is because Jehovah has heard that I am unloved. Therefore, he has given me this son also. So she named him Shimon or Simeon, which means hearing. Once more she conceived and had a son. And she said, now this time my husband will be joined to me because I have borne him three sons. So now during this time frame, remember, this is what? This is in that after the 7 years. So this is from 7 to 14. All these children are going to begin to be born. So they're not having a normal period of 3 years. In most cases, it's 2 or less. Then another baby is being born. So every time Yaakov would sleep with Leah, she would get pregnant and have a child. So now he's got 3, and the third one is named Levi, which means joining, which is going to bring all this family together. She conceived yet again and had a son and said, this time I will praise Jehovah. Therefore, she named him Yehuda or Judah, which means praise. Then she stopped having children. So now all of this took place within probably like a 5-year period that she's getting pregnant and having these children. Then when Rachel saw that she was not bearing children for Yaakov, now this isn't after these kids are born, this is earlier. She realizes, I'm not getting pregnant. So what does she do? She says, give me children to Yaakov or I will die. This made Yaakov angry at Rachel. He answered, am I in Elohim's place? He's the one who is denying you children. And she said, here is my maid Bilhah, which is the maid that she was given by her father. Go sleep with her and let her give birth to a child, and that will be laid on my knees. In other words, this child will then be placed in her lap, and she will, in fact, be considered the mother of this child, so that through her I can build a family. So she gave him Bilhah, her slave girl, as his wife, and Yaakov went in and slept with her. So this happened during this period where she wasn't having children, but after the first child was born. So sometime in that time period, she gives Bilhah to Yaakov and he sleeps with her. So then it is whom she named, I'm sorry, I've lost my place. Down here at the bottom. Okay. So she gave him Bilhah, her slave girl, as his wife, and Yaakov went in and slept with her. So as we complete our third session, Bilhah conceived and bore Yaakov a son. So she gets pregnant right away. All of this is Jehovah's doing because of this period of time he's going to be there. And when he comes back, he's actually going to have 11 sons, with the 12th son being born in the land of Canaan upon his return. Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Rachel said, Elohim has judged in my favor. Indeed, he has heard me and given me a son. Therefore, she called him Dan, or he judged. Bilhah, Rachel's slave girl, conceived again and bore Yaakov a second son, because these are basically considered now his wives. So Rachel said, I have wrestled mightily with my sister and won, and called him Naphtali, or my wrestling. So now this servant, which is the wife of now Yaakov, has 2 children. All of this is still happening within this 7-year cycle. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took Zilpah, her slave girl, and gave her to Yaakov as his wife. Zilpah, Leah's slave girl, bore Yaakov a son, and Leah's good fortune has come, calling him God, or G-A-D, God, for good fortune. Zilpah, Leah's slave girl, bore Yaakov a second son. And Leah said, how happy I am. Women will say, I am happy, and called him Asher. So now all of these children have been born during this 7 years, because he's having 2 and 3 children in a year because of the fact that they're getting pregnant immediately upon having sex with Yaakov. But the battle between the sisters is causing this friction where they'll say, go back in there with her, because it still ain't a good situation. So this concludes our third session, and we can see how this situation in a period of what we're going to find out is like 7 years, all of these children have been born. Because he worked for 7 years and didn't have sex with anyone, just to marry Rachel. So within this 7-year frame, all of these children are going to be born. We go now to the fourth section. So let's see what we have. No questions yet. All right. Let's go back to our shared screen. Now it's working. So I did something. Now we're going to go into the fourth session. The fourth session is basically where Rachel is finally going to get pregnant, and she's going to have a son. After this son is born, that's going to be a total of 11 children. Remember, he's only going to be there for 20 total years, but in this time frame, these women are having or conceiving in a rapid rate. So we go on as we study this particular section, which goes, fourth session goes from chapter 30, verse 14, all the way to 27. And the fourth session has 2 slides. So during the wheat harvest session, Reuben. So Reuben's a young child, and he goes out and finds some mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes so that I can be fertile. Evidently, this was their belief that these things would bring about fertility in a woman. So Leah answered, isn't it enough that you have taken away my husband? Do you have to take my son's mandrakes too? Rachel said, very well. In exchange for your son's mandrakes, sleep with him tonight. When Yaakov came in from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, you have to come and sleep with me because I've hired you with my son's mandrakes. So Yaakov slept with her that night. Elohim listened to Leah, which basically means that she's going to get pregnant again. And she conceived and bore Yaakov a fifth. This is the 5th child of Leah. Leah said, Elohim has given me my hire because I gave my slave girl to my husband. So she called him Issachar, or hire or reward. So this is her reward for giving her servant to Yaakov to marry. So Leah then conceives again and bore a 6th son to Yaakov. And Leah said, Elohim has given me a wonderful gift. Now at last my husband will live with me, since I have borne him 6 sons. And she called him Zebulun, which means living together. So all of the time, each one of these wives would have a separate tent for their offspring and for them to be with Yaakov. And so now we got these 4/10, and there got a lot of kids coming out of these 4/10. So after this, it says, verse 21, she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah or Dinah, and which means controversy over right. So this battle between who is going to get the most affection from Yaakov, who is going to be his favorite wife between Leah and Rachel, has involved also their two maidens as well, their servant girls, and we have a total of 10 children. And I'm sorry, 8 sons and 1 daughter. After that, we go into the close of this session. Then Elohim took note of Rachel. This means that now she's going to get pregnant, and heeded her prayer and made her fertile. She conceived a son and said, Elohim has taken away my disgrace. Remember, to not have children was one of the worst things that a woman would feel. She called him Yosef or Joseph. May he add, saying, may Jehovah add to me another son as well. After Rachel had given birth to Joseph, Yaakov says to Laban, send me on my way so that I can return to my own place, to my own country. Let me take my wives for whom I have served you. So that means 14 years are over. He worked 7 years for Rachel, and now 7 for Leah have been completed. He says, let me take my wives and go back to my own country. He says, you know very well how faithfully I have served you. Laban answered him, if you regard me favorably, then please listen. I have observed the signs that Jehovah, and he's using the name that Yaakov uses for the creator of the universe, he says, has blessed me on account of you. So now there's been in the mind of Laban, all this that's happening, he's basically saying, wow, this only the creator could cause all of this to transpire, all of this to happen. And at the same time, my herds are being increased. So only Jehovah could do this. And so with that, we complete the 4th session, and we're getting ready to go into the 5th session, which is a little longer, and it is 3 slides because it's a little longer. It goes from Genesis 30, verse 28, which is where we're leaving off from the 4th session, all the way to chapter 31, verse 16. So we're going to see in here that Laban and Yaakov or Jacob are going to make an arrangement whereby he will stay an additional period of 6 more years in this land. Because basically he's going back with only the women and the children, and he really hasn't, since he's worked all of that time for that, he's put in all that work, he hasn't really gotten camels and things like that. He hasn't gotten donkeys, anything to transport his family, not a wagon, nothing. And so basically Laban is saying, you know, that's a good thing you want to do, but how you going to do that? And so now they're going to go into that situation whereby he's going to end up working another 6 years to acquire livestock, material gain for himself and his family, because now he's no longer working for free. Well, when I say free, that's the dowry that he said he would work for his wives. So with that, we're going to get into our 5th session. Verse 28, chapter 30, verse 28. Laban says, name your wages. He said, and I will pay them. Yaakov replied, you know how faithfully I have served you and how your livestock have prospered under my care. The few you had before I came have increased substantially. So he was taking care of the sheep the goats, all of the animals that Laban had, camels, whatever he had, Yaakov was taking care of them. And Yaakov has blessed you wherever I went. But now, when will I provide for my own household? Laban said, what should I give you? So now what are the wages that you want to acquire wealth so that you can take your family with you with wealth? He says, nothing, answered Yaakov. Just do this one thing for me. Once more, I will pasture your flock and take care of it. So now the deal is going to be what he now begins to describe. So he says, just do this. He says, I will also go through the flock and pick out every speckled, spotted, or brown sheep, and every speckled or spotted goat. These and their offspring will be my wages, and I will let my integrity stand as witness against me in the future. When you come to look over the animals constituting my wages, every goat that isn't speckled or spotted, and every sheep that isn't brown will count as stolen by me. So if you see any animal that I claim is mine that don't meet this criteria of look, then that ain't mine. So Laban replied, as you have said, so be it. So the way he framed it was helping Laban say, that's a good deal. Why? Because most animals don't have spotted, spotted lambs or brown. Most of the sheep are white. They don't want no dark sheep. They want the white wool so that they can then make thread and yarn and so on. And so that day, Laban then goes back and removed the male goats that were streaked or spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled or spotted, and everyone with white on it, and all the brown sheep, turned them over to his son. So he took all of these animals away and put 3 days distance between himself and Yaakov. And Yaakov fed the rest of Laban's flock. So basically all he left was animals that couldn't possibly meet this criteria. So he really thinks that, hey, after so many years, he's gonna get frustrated, we're gonna make a better deal. But he's not gonna have enough. He's gonna end up staying even longer, and I will be blessed. Verse 37, Yaakov took fresh cut branches from popular almond and plane trees and made white streaks on them by peeling off the bark. Then he set the rods as he had peeled upright in the watering trough so that the animal would see them when they came to drink. And since they bred when they came to drink, the animals mated in sight of the rods and gave birth to streaked, speckled, spotted young. So these animals, now they're 3 days distance. Laban don't even want to see what's going on because he feels like when he comes back, Yaakov has shown integrity. He ain't going to steal. So it's going to be impossible for there to be any animals other than all belonging to Laban. But he puts these speckled rods at the watering trough, and these animals began to mate. And evidently, once again, we see the hand of the Creator in this. Now the animals begin to mate, and some of the offspring are streaked and brown for the sheep. He also kept his own livestock separate and did not have them mixed with Laban's flock. So once they spotted animals came out and the brown came out, he set them aside in another pen so that he could then mate them and get more animals for himself. The other animals that didn't come out that way were fine. They can go over there and be with Laban, but all the animals that did come that way, he separated them. Whenever the hardier animals came in the heat, Yaakov would set up the rods in the watering trough so that the animals would see them and conceive in front of them. But he didn't set up the rods in front of the weaker animals. Thus, the more feeble were Laban's and the stronger were Yaakov. So his animals began to come out stronger and bigger than Laban's. In this way, the man became very rich and had large flocks along with male and female slaves, camels, and donkeys. So this is what he's going to need to make that trek back. So he's preparing to do that very thing. But then he heard that Laban's sons were saying, Yaakov has taken away everything that our father once had. It's from what used to belong to our father that he has gotten so rich. So now they have come and seen how big his flock is becoming compared to Laban. So now they're jealous, and so now they're planning to take everything. He also saw that Laban regarded him differently than before. So now Yaakov sees that Laban is not happy. Jehovah said to Yaakov, return to the land of your ancestors. So this would be after a 6-year period of this going on. So Jehovah then tells him to go back to your kinsmen and I will be with you. So he's going to work it out. But you can now leave. So Yaakov sent for Rachel and Leah and had them come to the field where his flock was. He said to them, I see by the way your father looks that he feels differently towards me than before. But the Elohim of my father has been with me, which is what Jehovah said. We go on. Chapter 31, verses 6 through 16. You know that I have served your father with all my strength, and that your father has belittled me and has changed my wages 10 times. But Elohim did not allow him to do me any damage. If he said the speckle will be your wages, then all the animals gave birth to speckle young. And if he said the streak will be your wages, then all the animals gave birth to streak young. This is how Elohim has taken away your father's animals and given them to me. Once when the animals were mating, I had a dream. I looked up and there in front of me the male goats which mated with the females were streaked, speckled and mottled. Then in the dream the angel of Elohim said to me, Yaakov, and I replied, here I am. He continued, raise your eyes now and look. All the male goats mating with the females are streaked, speckled, and mottled. Mottled, for I have seen everything Laban has been doing to you. I am the Elohim of Bethel, or Bethel, where you anointed a standing stone with oil, where you vowed your vow to me. Now get up, get out of this land, and return to the land where you were born. Rachel and Leah answered him. So he's telling them he wants to do this. What do they think? We no longer have any inheritance from our father's possessions. And he considers us foreigners since he has sold us. So he gave us to you for the dowry that you paid, which were the 14 years. Moreover, he has consumed everything he received in exchange for us. So he's getting all wealthy, but he's not going to give us any of that. Nevertheless, the wealth which Elohim has taken away from our father has become ours. For now, we are going to take all these speckled and streaked animals with us and our children's anyway. So whatever Elohim has told you to do, let's do it. So that completes our 5th session. Let's see how we're doing for time. We're doing real good. We're going to get right into the 6th session, unless you have some questions, and let's see. I still don't see any questions in the chat, so we'll get back to our shared screen. And we will go to our 6th session. Then Yaakov got up, put his sons and wives on the camels, and carried off all his livestock, along with all the riches he had accumulated. The livestock in his possession, which he had acquired in Padam Aram, which is just like Haran, to go to Isaac, his father, in the land of Canaan. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep. Remember, he said 3 days journey away from everything Yaakov was doing, believing that he was going to get another 6 years out of him because he wasn't going to have enough to take. But in this time period, all of these animals are coming. He's trying to make more deals with Yaakov. Yaakov is not doing it. He said he tried to change my wages 10 times, but Jehovah has blessed me in its stead. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep. Rachel stole a household idols that belonged to her father. Now, when you look at that, she's taken these idols because she believes that this by divination, his father will recognize what has transpired and come after them. And by taking these idols, he'll be searching for idols and won't be able to follow them, and they'll have a bigger head start to get away from him. So Yaakov outwitted Laban, the Arami or Aramite, by not telling him of his intended flight. So he fled with everything he had. He departed, crossed the Euphrates River, and set out for the hill country of Gilead. Not until the third day was Laban told that Yaakov had fled. So now that's what he wanted. He said 3 days journey between the two of us. So while he was out there shearing the sheep, Yaakov grabbed all that's his, probably left a couple people there with the stock that belonged to Laban, and took off. Laban took his kinsman with him and spent the next 7 days pursuing Yaakov, overtaking him in the hill country of Gilead. So he's all the way to Gilead, coming into just before the land of Canaan. But Elohim came to Laban the Aramite in a dream that night and said to him, be careful that you don't say anything to Yaakov, either good or bad. And one thing Laban understands is the power of this God that Yaakov served. So he really doesn't want to mess with that. And so he's going to take that to heart as much as he can. He's not going to be able to lay a hand on Yaakov. When Laban caught up, remember that's 7 days, caught up with Yaakov, Yaakov had set up camp in the hill country. So Laban and his kinsmen set up camp in the hill country of Gilead. Laban said to Yaakov, what do you mean by deceiving me and carrying off my daughters as if they were captives taken in war? Why did you flee in secret and deceive me? Once again, he keeps talking about this deception, which should bring about some kind of guilt in the mind of Yaakov. But since Jehovah has told him to go, then that guilt is going to be pushed aside. Why did you flee in secret and deceive me and not tell me? I would have sent you off with joy and singing to the music of tambourines and lyres. You didn't even let me kiss my sons and daughters goodbye. What a stupid thing to do. Now, this sixth session also has 3 slides because it's going from 17, verse 17, all the way to verse 42. We go now to verse 29. Laban says, I have it in my power to do you harm. But the Elohim of your father spoke to me last night and said, be careful that you don't do anything to Yaakov, either good or bad. So this is also a witness, not only to Laban, but to Yaakov, that Jehovah is going to do what he said. Granted that you have had to leave because you long so deeply for your father's house, but why did you steal my God? So now he brings up these gods that Rachel had taken, thinking that it was going to give him enough time to get back to the land of Canaan, where they would be strong enough to withstand her father when he came. Yaakov answered, verse 31, answered Laban, because I was afraid. I said, suppose you take your daughters away from me by force. But if you find your gods with someone, that person will not remain alive. So with our kinsman to witness, if you spot anything that I have which belongs to you, take it back. Yaakov did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So he's basically saying that she will not live is what he has spoken. And we're going to find that she is going to die before they get all the way back to his father. Laban went into Yaakov's tent, then to Leah's tent, and to the tent of the two slave girls, but he did not find them. He left Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household gods, put them in the saddle on their camel, and was sitting on the saddle. Laban felt all around the tent but did not find them. She said to her father, "Please don't be angry that I'm not getting up in your presence, but it's the time of my menstrual cycle, my period." So he searched, but he didn't find the household gods. Then Yaakov became angry and started arguing with Laban. "What have I done wrong?" he demanded. "What is my offense that you have come after me in hot pursuit?" So now he's gotten that testimony. I'm going to get you there. So now he's beginning to feel his strength coming. "You have felt all around in my stuff, but what have you found of all your household goods? Put it here in front of my kinsmen and yours." These are the ones he brought with him, along with these soldiers that Laban had brought with him, so that they can render judgment between the two of us. And so we're going to complete the sixth session. He says, "I have been with you for these 20 years. Your female sheep and goats haven't aborted their young, and I haven't eaten the male animals in your flock. If one of your flock was destroyed by a wild animal, I didn't bring the carcass to you, but bore the loss myself. You demanded that I compensate you for any animal stolen, whether by day or by night. Here's how it was for me. During the day, thirst consumed me, and at night, the cold. My sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your two daughters, 6 years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the Elohim of my father, the Elohim of Abraham, the one whom Yitzhak fears, had not been on my side, by now you would have certainly have already sent me away with nothing. Elohim God has seen how distressed I've been and how it ends there, but we'll pick it up in the seventh session. Laban answered, verse 43, "The daughters are mine, the children are mine, the flocks are mine, and everything you see is mine." This is exact contradiction of what Yaakov just told him. All of that, he's saying, belongs to me. Laban is mad. He says, "No, they're all mine. But what can I do today about these daughters of mine or the children they have borne?" So now, and not only that, but the flocks, because they're streaked and spotted just the way they made that agreement. And that's why they brought it together in front of all of the witnesses to witness what he is saying. He says, "Let's make a covenant, I and you, and let it stand as a testimony between me and you." So Yaakov took a stone and set it upright as a standing stone. Then Yaakov said to his kinsmen, "Gather some stones." And they took stones, made a pile of them, and they ate there by the pile of stones. Laban called it Iga Sahudata, which means piles of witness in Aramaic, while Yaakov called it Galed, pile of witness in Hebrew. So they spoke the two languages and named this place after in their own language. So obviously, during this time period, Yaakov has been teaching the servants and things that were now purchased by him in teaching them Hebrew. Laban said, "This pile witnesses between me and you today. This is why it is called Galed, and also Mitzpah, the watchtower, because he said, 'May Jehovah watch between me and you when we are apart from each other.'" So now he understands the power of Jehovah and uses that name here, saying, "May he watch between us. If you cause pain to my daughters, or if you take wives in addition to my daughters, then even if no one is there with us, still Elohim is witness between me and you." Laban also said to Yaakov, here is this pile, and here is this standing stone, which I have set up between me and you. May this pile be a witness, and may the standing stone be a witness, that I will not pass beyond this pile to you, and you will not pass beyond this pile and this standing stone to me to cause harm. I'm not coming back to this land, and I don't want you to get an army and come back to me to try to repay me for what you think I did to you. He says in verse 53, may the Elohim of Abraham and also the God of Nahor. So this is the brother of Abraham, he said, which is the father of uh, Laban, the God of their father, judge between us. So they're talking about different deities, but Laban recognizes the power of the God of Yaakov and Abraham. And so he's going to bow down and say, just don't you come to cause me no harm. I won't cause you no harm. But Yaakov swore by the one his father Isaac or Yitzhak feared. And so we conclude our lesson by going further all the way to verse 3 of chapter 32. As we complete verse 54, Yaakov offered a sacrifice on the mountain and invited his kinsmen to the meal. So those slaves that he brought with him, they were invited to this meal based on the sacrifice of this altar that he had made there. They ate the food and spent the whole night on the mountain. Early in the morning, Laban got up, kissed his sons and daughters, and blessed them. Then Laban left and returned to his own place. Yaakov went on his way, and the angels of Elohim met him as he began to enter the land of Canaan. When Yaakov saw them, he said, this is Elohim's camp, and called the place Mahanayim, which means two camps. So as he began to enter the land of Canaan, he sees these angelic figures, probably in the form of a dream or something like that. It doesn't say that any of his kinsmen saw them, but it says that he saw him. And they met with Yaakov. And so with that, that ends our lesson of Vayetze on tonight. So let's go back, see if we have any questions, give you an opportunity to answer any questions that you may have before we give our prayer and leave. I don't see any. Nothing in the chat. Nothing. All right. So everybody understood everything very well. And I tried not to rush. So with that, we're going to close out with the priestly blessing of Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 through 26, which is what Jehovah said to Aaron and to Moses to bless the people when they come together. May Jehovah bless you and keep you. May Jehovah make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And may Jehovah lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. With that, I say shalom. I will see you next time for lesson 8, which will continue the journey of Yaakov back to his father. Shalom.